From Student to Superstar, a look into the impact of educational theater on secondary students. A research discussion by Brianna Beyer. For my paper, I decided to take a look into both who and what influences students to go down a life path paved with art. However, I chose to follow secondary students. I chose them as my observed population because of how impressionable those students are from ages 12 to 18. This became a perfect segue into my thesis statement. Using research from the last 10 years up to the present, theater education in secondary schools has successfully impacted those students who choose to participate in the activities. To break down the research even further, it has been split into 3 parlors. 1. The accessibility of theater and theater education to students. 2. How theater impacts students academically and personally. And 3. What type of role models are in place for students who find themselves intrigued by a career in theater? I believe there are 3 contributors from my research who stand out to me and fully support both the purposes of my paper and the parlors that I have put them in. They are a local theater educator who answered budget-based inquiry questions, S.S. Rupert, author of Critical Evidence, and Cindy Foley, moderator of a TED Talk titled Teaching Art or Teaching to Think Like an Artist from TEDx Columbus. In support of my first parlor, the accessibility of theater education to students, I conducted an interview based on a budget and curriculum inquiry. This interview provided me with an inside look to the life of a local high school theater director and what type of hoops there really are to jump through in order to have a successful program. Each school is different, based on the district that they fall in that they get funding from different places, which means those different places give different amount of money. I also learned that this particular budget was about $1,500, which is not enough to carry one from show to show due to how much sets cost, costumes, programs, and other miscellaneous things that are needed. Also, there are very few schools now who still have drama classes where you sit down, have a book, and you learn different chapters of introduction, stagecraft, makeup, and different acting techniques. Many programs now are co-curricular, which means they occur after school hours. This particular theater director has found success in her co-curricular journey, where 17 years ago, she barely had anyone auditioning for her shows. But now, she has cutoffs for auditions because she has so many people coming. Thus proving that even though this particular program doesn't occur during school hours, there are plenty of people still participating, and it is still accessible to those students who attend that school. Moving on to S.S. Rupert. This artifact to me provided jaw-dropping intel. As many of us know, our collegiate fate sits on the shoulders of a 3-letter hawk, known as the SAT. The SAT is perhaps the scariest test that one will ever take, as it costs a pretty penny and you don't get to leave when you're finished. Rupert's research yields. Arts participation in the SAT scores co-vary. That is, they tend to increase linearly. The more arts classes, the higher the scores. This study also notes that those who took 4 years of art coursework or more outperformed their peers who had a 1.5 years of experience or less. This chart, from page 9 of Critical Evidence, is from a 2005 study that shows the average SAT score based on art class enrollment. Supporting the critical evidence, if you will, that arts education has a positive influence on the academic lives of students. Moving on to Cindy Foley, who brings up a very interesting point when telling her audience about her daughter Adeline.
would like each of you to determine what is the word that matches the image in number 7. Okay, starting to come up with some ideas. Good. Get them in your head, because I want to share with you what my daughter Adeline chose. Adeline chose art, and as her parent, I thought that was awesome, but this is an incorrect answer according to the testing guide. The correct answer is mud, and I'm sure that's what you all chose. Right. How can something so nebulous be so concrete? Actually, I think this quiz is a fitting analogy for the problem in art education today. Art education has been impacted by the standards and testing culture like all other disciplines.
So, with that in mind, having students who think like artists, contrary to popular belief, actually have doors open for them, which allows for a more diverse pool of role models. Capitalize, to think like an artist is to think out of the box and not like everybody else. Cindy Foley explains in her TED Talk that her daughter Adeline was taken down a peg when answering a question wrong on her image map. The type of role model that I think she would be looking for is someone who thinks just like her. Someone who thinks outside the box, just like an artist would. And the perfect example I could come up with was Lin-Manuel Miranda. Lin-Manuel Miranda is a New Yorker with Puerto Rican roots. Before he was a bombshell in the theater world, he was a substitute teacher, making a difference every day to these kids, whether they knew it or not. And something I think that him and Adeline have in common is his ability to always think creatively. Lin ties his successes to always thinking creatively and growing up in a house with every cast album. A quote from the New York Times. My personal connection to this topic is rooted in my journey both as an educator and a director, and also my love and support for the performing arts. As of this past school year, I became the head of fine arts at a local Boys and Girls Club facility, where I made it my mission to connect and inspire my students to see something in themselves that they might not have seen without guidance. Thus, this topic has pretty much become my life. I've never written a paper like this before, and I really liked the focus on the process and how the language and organization and mastery of the topic was super important. Finally, my 3 new inquiry questions if I were to continue this research are: since 2000, how has arts education changed in public schools in the United States? In the next 10 years, what can be expected for theater education in schools in general? How will the programs change to fit the times? Or will they remain, as theater does, timeless? And since 2010, has enrollment for theater arts/arts-based majors at colleges gone up? To leave my perspective on my topic, then I was just someone who knew that theater was important, and it did something for me, so it had to do the same for somebody else. And I just knew I liked seeing shows, and I liked the way that seeing people perform made me feel. But now I see that there is so much more to it than watching those people perform and feeling something. It's about what kind of person that could make you into, academically, personally, and how that affects your role models and what you could end up doing in life. Thank you.